All right, fifth grade, we are going to start learning about the metric system. The past couple math lessons have been introducing you to what the metric system is, and I'm excited to teach you about that today. It's actually pretty easy. You're always going to be multiplying or dividing by a factor of 10. So, never anything more complicated than that. So let's talk about this mnemonic. This helps you remember what's the biggest and what's the smallest in the metric system here. So it is called King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. So the biggest is going to be the king. So anything that's kilo is always going to be really, really big. So think kilometer. I'll show you an example of something that's a kilo. Images. A kilometer is like a distance, like a mile kind of, but it's a little bit smaller than that. Have you ever heard of a 5K? A 5K is a kilometer, or 5 kilometers, and it's 3.1 miles. So think kilometer is a really long length. Kilogram is a lot of liquid. Kiloliter is a lot of something. The next biggest would be hecto, which is Henry. Died would be deca. And then this is our base. Our base is either gram, liter, or meter. So that's always where you're starting. So I'm going to go ahead and circle that here. So this over here is big. And this over here is little tiny small. I'm going to put an S there for being small. So as I go this direction, I get small. And as I go to the left, I get big. So the millimeter, milligram, milliliter, whatever it is, if it has milli in front of it, it's really, really small. If it has kilo in front of it, it's really, really big. So let's go ahead and compare really quick. It's a nice little introduction here. Little pop quiz for you. If I am comparing a kilogram to a milligram, what's going to be bigger? Pause the video. If you said kilogram, you are correct. Okay, so moving down here, is a meter larger or smaller than a meter or millimeter? So let's look here. What did I just say about milli? If it's a milli, it's really, 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 really small. So obviously the answer there is going to be meter. So that's the answer for that blank. If I go down, let's look at this. I'm going to pull up a meter stick in Google Images. So this is a meter stick. It's a big, long yardstick, and you guys can't really see how big it is. It's probably about 2 or 3 feet long. This is a millimeter. A millimeter is one of these little tiny tick marks on the meter stick. So if I have a meter stick and I'm holding it, what is going to be more of? Is there going to be more meter sticks, or are there going to be more of these little tiny little tick marks that go all the way? Well, it would be the millimeters would be there would be more of them because they're small, so they can fit more in that meter stick. The meter stick's only going to be one, but there's lots and lots of these tiny little millimeter tick marks. As you can see, a centimeter is a little bit bigger, but not much. And the meter is the biggest of all. So there's going to be more of these millimeters because they're smaller. So in a given length, are there more millimeters? There's always going to be more millimeters because they can fit more. They're tiny. They can fit more in a small space. All right. So now we're going to talk a little bit about, well, how do I find out like how many millimeters are in an object or how many meters there are? So if I have, for example, let's just say I have a length that looks like this here. And this is going to be a length of 5 meters. Well, I want to find out how many millimeters are in there. How many of these little tiny tick marks are there in 5 meters? Well, we can find that out. But if I want to change these meters into millimeters, is it going to get bigger or is it going to get smaller? Let me think about that for a second. Well, it is going to get bigger because there's just going to be more of them. Whereas I have 5 meters here, there are 5 meters. And in 1 meter, there's 1,000 millimeters in 1 meter. So to figure out how many millimeters there are in these 5 meters, I'm going to have to multiply to get a bigger number. So it's going to do 5 times 1,000, which would be 5,000. And that's a lot of millimeters. There's going to be more of them. So I want you to think about if you're trying to make going from a bigger unit to a smaller unit. So if I'm going from this direction, so I'm starting with my big units and I'm going smaller, I'm going to have to multiply. If I'm moving to the right on this table, I'm trying to figure out how many small units are, I'm always going to multiply. If I'm going to the left and I want to figure out how many big units there are in these small units, I'm going to have to divide. So think about and use this table often as we go throughout this because it's really going to help you out as we go forward. And I'm actually going to pull up another table for you so we can look at that as we go as well, because I think this one will be really helpful. Okay. Alrighty. So we're going to go ahead and do some problems together. And as we go throughout these problems, we're going to look back and forth on this chart here. And I think that'll be able to help us. Going down, going down, going down. Okay. So remember, if we're going from small to big, in this case, we would be dividing. Okay, so we're going to do this example together. We're going to make this going from big to small. So if we're going from big to small, big to small, I'm going to multiply, okay? So remember, I have a kilometer, and that's the biggest one. If we remember our King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk, the kilometer is big, and we're going to a smaller, which is a meter. So I'm looking on this chart here, and I see that, I want to get from here, from this kilo, down, let me get my pen here, from this kilo down to this base. So how many times do I have to go down this chart is how many times bigger it's going to get. So I go 1, 2, 3, and each of these is a thing of 10. So 10 times 3 would be 1,000. So in order to get kilometers to meters, I have to multiply by 1,000. So I'm going to do 2 times 1,000 to get 2,000 meters. So the other one is going to be going the other direction here. Remember, these are just examples. You don't have to do these ones. I want to get from a little tiny small unit to a bigger unit. Small to big, we divide. So centimeters are small, meters are big. So we're going to divide by 100. And the reason being is if I'm starting here at my centimeters and I'm going this direction to get to my base twice, I'm going to go 10 times 10. So 1, 2, which is 100. So if I divide 100 or 50 centimeters divided by 100, I get 0.5 meters. So this is a little bit confusing, guys, and I hope by the end of this it will make a little bit of sense. So we're going to do a couple problems together, and if you're still confused, we can meet over the phone and we can work it out. So we're going to start with 15 meters equals how many millimeters? Okay, so first things first is we have to decide what's bigger, a meter or a millimeter. Remember, our meter is the whole stick, and our millimeter are the little tiny tick marks. So obviously our meter is big. So we are going from big to small. And remember, if we go to big to small, do we multiply or do we divide? Think about it. We're going to be multiplying. Okay. So that's going to be my operations there. I'm going to have to be multiplying. So I'm going to go back to my chart over here. And right now I'm in meters. And I'm going to be going down to millimeters. And if I go down 1, 2, 3 times, that's going to be times 1,000. So I'm going to have to be doing 15 times 1,000. 15 times 1,000 equals 15,000. So 15 meters equals 15,000 millimeters. That's a lot of little tick marks, but if you think about it, and we have 15 of those sticks, and each of those has those tiny little millimeters in it, that makes sense. That's a logical answer there. So let's erase there, and we'll do one more problem together. Now this one, I have 2,040 millimeters, and I'm trying to figure out how many meters that makes. So I'm starting this time with the little tiny tick marks, and I'm moving to the big meter stick. So I'm going from small to big. And remember, if I go from small to big, I am doing the opposite. I'm going to be dividing. So this time, guys, and instead of doing the multiplication piece, we're going to be going the other direction on the table. So we're going to be starting here and working our way up. So we are going to be dividing. If we go this direction up the chart, we're going to be dividing. If we go down the chart, we're going to be multiplying. So I have to do 2,040 divided by 1,000. Divided by 1,000. So 1,000 goes into 2,040 2 times, minus 2,000. And I think that is, let me double check that. I'm pretty sure, running out of room here, is 2,040 divided by 1,000. Yep, is 2.04. That's exactly what I thought. So that makes sense. If I have lots of little milliliters, I probably only have 2 meter sticks and a little left over. I know that this is a confusing thing for you guys and it's hard for you to figure out, but I just want you to try your best. And if you're still struggling, you can set up a meeting with me. I'd like you to try the rest of the problems on your own. Remember, the easiest way to remember what to do is if you're going from big to small, you multiply. If you are going from small to big, you divide. And the number of times that you divide is the number of times you go down the chart. So for example, if I'm starting at deca and going to base, that would just be times 10 or divided by 10 because I'm only moving one spot. If I'm going from hecto to base, that would be either from, you would be going divided by 100 or multiplying by 100 because I'm 2 spots away from the base. If I'm going from kilo to base, I would be times 1,000 or divided by 1,000 because I'm 3 spots away from the base. So 10 times 10 times 10 is 1,000, 10 times 10 is 100, and 10 times 1 is 10. We're going to do more on this in our Zoom meeting, so if you're confused, just hold out until then.